I'm Anne-Marie Alcantara. I'm a Latina reporter at the Wall Street Journal covering marketing, accessibility, retail, and many other topics. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm also wearing a striped shirt that has pink and blue colors, and I have black hair, it's long, and bangs. I've had bangs for over a decade now. And I'd like to introduce our panelists now. We have Fred Confer, we have Ted Drake, November champion, and Cybele Grandjean, who can introduce themselves and what they do and the work that they do at their companies and how it involves accessibility. So Fred, I will kick it off to you to introduce yourself first.
Sure, thanks a lot, Anne-Marie. Hi everyone, my name is Fred Confer. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a white male. I like to think I have just slightly gray hair. My colleagues challenge me on that view, but anyways, I'm rocking my XCon 2022 t-shirt proudly, and I'm in a very sterile conference room right now.
Ed, let's kick it off to you.
The joys of Zoom and having it on mute. My name is Ted Drake. I'm the Global Accessibility Leader for Intuit. You could actually see some of my Lunch and Learn virtual workshop. I didn't expect that to be in the screen. We do weekly Lunch and Learns at Intuit, and I like the background. So I'm currently at CSUN. There's a lot of people behind me. That's why I'm using the background. I'm wearing a black t-shirt that says QuickBooks. It's the only green item I wore today. I didn't want anybody pinching me. And older white guy with gray beard, glasses, and pass it back.
November, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm November Champion. I'm a senior UX accessibility specialist at Edward Jones. I am a white, cisgender, fat, disabled woman in her 40s with dark brown hair, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
And lastly, let's go to Cybele Grandjean, which I think now I did your last name much better than the first time.
It takes a little practice. My name is Cybele Grandjean. I am SVP of Product Design at Hearst, and we have been working on incorporating accessibility into all of our work for the last year and a half or so. I am a white woman in my 40s with long blondish brown hair, and I'm wearing a black turtleneck.
Excellent. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I want to make it clear as well to our audience members that though all our panelists work at all these different companies, they are speaking today on behalf of their personal views and not their company views. Just want to make that clear. And let's kick it off. So first and foremost, I think let's sort of start big picture. D&I efforts have been sort of took off in 2020 and many years before that. And now it seems like we're at a point where, you know, these efforts are bringing accessibility into that umbrella and making sure that accessibility isn't something thought of as, you know, on the side. Oh, we'll get to that. Oh, that's not really like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'd like to hear from all of you, you know, how you think you yourself are trying to incorporate that into those types of efforts, or how your companies are doing it, because it's definitely something that's top of mind. And we can start with November.
Sure. Our accessibility program is really new at Edward Jones. I have been at Edward Jones for a year, actually, as of next week. And the accessibility program is maybe a couple weeks older than that. Partially because the digital work that we do at Edward Jones is largely based on our financial advisor space. And so that the team of about 15 digital accessibility specialists that we have right now is focused on internal work and not external client-facing work. The DEI space that we are focused on now, the we actually kind of led into that work. We have a disability-focused employee resource group that we partner with very closely. We've done a lot of sort of cross-pollination there. And up until the work that we did with that group, DEI hadn't really focused in our space across the company. Financial services is, how do I put this politically nicely, not the most diverse segment. And so they're certainly working on race diversity, and even gender diversity is not very strong in financial services. So we're a little behind generally in the DEI boat. So disability hasn't been on financial services radar at all from a DEI perspective. So the work that we do has kind of led them into this space. I was actually just on a call with our DEI partners yesterday. The Accessibility 101 training that we hold every month as a part of our efforts will actually be something that they roll out to the entire firm, because DEI doesn't have anything in place for that. It becomes part of their inclusion initiative because they don't have anything. And so a lot of the efforts that we do as a digital accessibility program actually end up being part of the efforts that take the inclusion and the DEI initiative forward as a whole.
And Ted, let's go with you on what your company is doing to lead those efforts.
Sure, and pardon me if there's noise going on around me. There's a little bit of chaos outside here, but I would actually argue about accessibility being pulled into the DEI umbrella. I think it's the opposite. I think that the work that we've done has actually built the foundation and the partnerships with the Women's Network, the Pride Network, the Military Network. And so we've actually built a lot of the disclosure mechanisms, the awareness, the empathy, the intersectionality approach from the accessibility team. We see ourselves as a hub. We're not like this some kind of like nucleus, but we're rather the group that reaches out to every product team and every network. And so when Intuit was looking to expand our DEI, a lot of the stuff that they worked on was actually part of what we were working on. For instance, more inclusive interviewing processes and job descriptions and such. That is just as applicable for someone that's a single mother of 4 children that's working 3 jobs as it is for someone that might have a disability that also has limitations. So that's where I would say is I don't think it's like we're coming in at the last minute. I think we were there to begin with.
Thank you for that, Ted. And Fred, let's go to you. And I think you might also have something to say on that in addition to describing your work.
Yeah, Fred Confer here. And I don't think I mentioned I'm part of Bristol Myers Squibb. I'm the director of IT user experience. So sorry, I missed that in my initial intro. But I think our group's sort of in between what November and Ted described. We are also actually like November, early days in our journey. We're very excited about what we're doing, but still learning a lot, and I think we have a lot more to learn. But we're trying to apply ourselves like a hub and spoke model. Like we're trying to share the best practices and learnings that we have, but we're partnering with our business resource groups, which has a disability function. We're partnering with our DEI. We really see it as, truthfully, not an IT problem, but a business problem. So we're really trying to bring in all of our key stakeholders to feel a sense of ownership and accountability to deliver, what are accessible digital capabilities to our end users.
And last but definitely not least, of course, Cybele.
Yeah, it actually ties in really nicely to a lot of the existing efforts that Hearst has made in the last few years around workplace training and inclusion. There's been a really amazing program put on by the People and Culture team around workplace training on race, gender identity, age, ability, et cetera. So that's set a nice groundwork for introducing digital accessibility as another inclusion issue. Additionally, the content of our brands like Cosmo and Esquire are very sort of social justice oriented. So again, it really ties nicely into the values of the brands. And then it's a very compelling argument, I think, to say that, because we publish, millions of web pages, that making those available to everybody, is actually improves people's lives directly. So in my opinion, it ties in really nicely to the things that the company is already doing.
And just a reminder to all our attendees, of course, that we are taking questions, and I will pepper some of them in throughout the panel, and as well hold some time at the end. And in regards to that, we have one question so far that I think would be great to talk about now. Maybe for Fred in November, this is maybe too early days for you, but feel free to weigh in if you want. Maybe this is more so Ted, but I would like to hear from, this is attending is asking, how do you tackle pushback from DE and I within the disability organization? That some ERGs get a lot of support, but the disability one does not. Does anyone have any initial thoughts on that?
I can say, because I co-founded our ERG. This is Ted, I'm sorry. I co-founded our ERG at Intuit for Ability Network. It's been about 9 years now. ERGs are dependent on the people that are running them. They're mostly volunteer based. It's like someone has a job, but they're also volunteering for ERGs. So if you're going to make your ERG successful, you need to keep everybody engaged. You need to give them, people have to have feeling like they're doing projects that are successful. Currently, our Abilities Network is doing great. Our African Ancestry Network is amazing. In the past, it was the Women's Network and the Pride Network, but it just depends on who is actually leading and part of that network. One of the things that also helps is to have some stability with funding so that the networks, if they want to sponsor something, they feel like, okay, I can just sponsor that and go for it. One of the things that helped our Abilities Network is that I co-founded and I lead the accessibility initiative, so I could, I could use my budget to kind of get things going early. And not all networks have that. November's got her hand up.
Yes, November, we can go to you. You sounds like you have something to say.
And so this reflects on some of my prior work in ERGs at other companies. But it's all about intersectionality. No one person just sits in one of these groups. And so I've found a lot of success by working together across the ERG population, and working with, Pride. Actually, the organization I was in before this, our Pride organization, was the most organized of all of the ERGs and had all of their stuff together. And they partnered really well with all of us. They were the ERG that was the most interested in making all of their materials and documentation accessible, and using color contrast for all of their newsletters, and learned how to make all of their PDFs accessible. And so it was just kind of easing in and using that intersectionality as best as we could across all of the ERGs.
And Fred, we will go to you next.
Yeah, just to build off what Ted and November were saying, it's really, for us, it's about partnerships. And we really try to find where there's commonality. And truthfully, with the type of topics that we're talking about here, these are universal challenges regardless of your race. For these disabilities do not focus on any one particular race. So what we're trying to do is create these partnerships. So for example, in May, there's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and that's a big day for us. We like to really kind of get loud, and so we actually are partnering with our on some Asian awareness events, which it's Asian Awareness Month, I guess, in May. And so we're always trying to find, I think November used the right word, intersections, where we all have some mutual benefit and honestly, it's just, let's find the best way to deliver on our causes. So partnerships is the only way I see that getting done.
And I know that some of you mentioned it's like early days for your companies of how you're incorporating accessibility into these efforts, and for others, it's always been there. And so would love to hear from all the panelists, if possible. Internally, are you facing any resistance, or is it sort of really embraced? It sounds like at some of your companies, it is day one, but it's being recognized. And Fred, we will go.
Sure. So, I mean, look, this is, I know for us in the community, we don't see this as new, but unfortunately, there's a lot of folks out there that this is new. So they view it as change, and everyone tends to be resistant to change. And so what we've tried to do to counter any resistance is to really create an awareness campaign, and what I like to refer to as a culture of empathy, because people really need to recognize that this is important. And so in a lot of our communications, what we actually try to do is not just give people, facts and, figures and make people aware of all the numbers out there, but to actually demonstrate for people what it's like if you were a low vision or a no vision person trying to interact with a website or an application of some kind, or if you have dyslexia. And we use basically, simulation tools to actually show it to people. And then we find that we can actually make a connection, break through that change resistance, and start to see some real movement. So that's just one way that we're trying to deal with the resistance to address your question, Amory.
In November, let's go to you.
I'm just going to make one little thing. I'm going to step out on my soapbox because this is a personal passion of mine, is that you just want to be really careful when you do simulation activities. There's a lot of psychology research out there that says that when people do simulations, that it engenders a lot of pity, which doesn't always motivate the right actions. So just that's my soapbox. I'll step off of it. I do think the change management piece is huge. That's part of the work that we're doing every day. One of the large reasons that I came to Edward Jones was the culture here is different than any other place that I've worked. One of the pieces here that is part of the reason I came here is that when I have the conversation with leaders about, hey, this is what accessibility is, I do the initial accessibility pitch and talk to them about what this is and what we're doing. Instead of that initial reaction, and I know if you've done accessibility for 2 weeks or 2 years or 10 years, the first reaction you normally get is, I don't really think we have disabled clients, or, well, that's not my target market. And I've not heard that once at Edward Jones. Typically, the first reaction I get is, oh, I didn't realize that was something that I needed to care about, but I'm all in. What do you need? And so that's really the argument that I want to get away from in this field. I don't ever want to have that argument again. And that's why I'm here. That's the culture piece that I feel like we need to get away from as an industry. It's not about how many people, it's not about who. We need to get past that.
And Cybele, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, I feel very lucky in that we really haven't faced resistance from people at all levels of the company are enthusiastic about the initiative. I think people really get it and are excited to be able to make a difference. So much so that we have people from all different parts of the company coming to us with questions, and we're really working hard to make sure that expertise is spread more evenly across the company. So I feel very fortunate about that.
And Ted, we'll go to you last for this question.
I think resistance a lot of times is because the message is incorrect. And what I mean by that is when I worked at Yahoo, the accessibility team, we worked directly with engineers, and the conversation was, you're not doing it correctly. Actually, this is the best way to do it, because there was a lot of pride in the code that people were creating. So we were kind of playing to their pride level and making sure that they were contributing to make the best product possible. Add into it, it's about the customer. So I had to change the way that we were pitching to them. And it's not about conformance, it's not about legal. What I realized with them is I need to show them a video of a customer trying to use the product, explain how something is broken, explain how it's better, and give them code examples or design examples on how to improve it. Because it was more about connecting people with customers, creating the empathy, awareness, education, and giving them the ability to make that change. And that's if you know your organization, because your organization might be about compliance. It might be that the bottom line is I need that compliance document, or I need this legal requirement. Then you need to coach your language and the way you sell it according to your company.
November, let's go back to you. Looks like you have something additional to say.
Yeah, I know you're going to cut me off, so I'll be quick. So I don't want to be all Pollyanna and pretend like this work is easy. It absolutely isn't. But one of the things that I do on an individual level when I'm convincing people to want to do this work is that I tailor the argument to the person. And so one of the things we've been talking about just this week on our team is we've been taking this quiz. There's an Atlassian article that has this communication style quiz. It's actually modeled after this assessment that typically is expensive. It's called the DISC, D-I-S-C. And it's about your communication style and your work style. And when you take it, it gives you one of 4 styles. And once you know those styles and you know the styles of the people around you, you can understand how they like to process information and how they like to communicate information about work. And when you know that about somebody, you can frame an argument in a way that makes sense to the way that they need information communicated to them. And so knowing that, you can understand how accessibility needs to be framed in a way that makes sense in their mental model. And so I am a dominant style, which get your head out of the gutter. But I am all about getting things done and getting them done quickly and getting them done on time and getting them off my to-do list. And so if you come to me with another task that is going to slow me down, I'm going to look at you and say, go away. So you need to make accessibility something that's easy for me to do and helps me get my work done faster and at a higher quality. So then now you know how to sell accessibility to me. The way that you sell accessibility to me is going to be completely different than the way you sell accessibility to an influencer, which is the I style. And so just tailoring that message to the person instead of tailoring it to, oh, this is a developer. And so all developers are the same, and thus the message should be because they're a developer. So that's my piece of advice.
November, I may end up taking it back to you because we're getting a lot of audience questions around this topic. And it was also related to my next question of how is accessibility being incorporated into people's job descriptions or people's, responsibilities. Of course, like company culture comes to mind. Some of the audience members are looking to understand sort of how you build that into the company and make sure that sort of everyone's bought in. And so November, it sounds like we could, people should tailor their message to the individual. Anything else you want to add on that topic?
Sure. I firmly believe that the earlier you have leadership on board, the easier all of this is. And I am lucky that my leadership is 100% on board. And so we went to them very early and said, I need all of my UX partners to have a performance related goal that includes accessibility. And so all of the UX designers and UX researchers and front end architects have a goal that says they need to improve their accessibility acumen this year. And that includes, training, that includes that their designs improve, that includes measurement by the accessibility specialist that's assigned to them. And so whether or not they are on board with accessibility or not, they're measured against that. That's part of their job. Their bonuses depend on it. So I don't really care whether they're on board or not. It's part of their job. It's no longer a fluffy, like, hey, let's all kumbaya around the fire. It's part of the way we do business. And so I think that's a critical part of embedding it into the culture. It's the way that we do business. We need to get that on the developers' job requirements as well, but we're working on that. Baby steps.
Yeah, no worries. I hear you. And Cybele, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, so in terms of the design team, we've spent the last year, talking about accessibility. Last year, a bunch of our team members came to AXCON and reported back on what they learned. So everybody's encouraged to do accessibility research on any project that they start. So the design team has been really, I think, moving forward on that really well. In terms of hiring, we've written into our job descriptions that you have to be passionate about building inclusive teams and products. We've put language in about familiarity with digital accessibility and implementing that into design. We're not asking people to be experts, but we are asking them to be passionate about learning about it. So that's something that, we want people that will come in and in a meeting speak up and say, hey, we need to consider accessibility here if no one else is speaking up. So additionally, we've also been rolling out training to all our teams. And so we have engineers pinging me all the time, asking for a seat in the training. And so that's really exciting when we start to see that people are taking it on for themselves and learning it.
And Ted, let's go to you next.
So we created an accessibility champion program. A lot of people have accessibility champion programs, but we did it so that we could create a common language across the company. So far, over 1,100 people have completed the accessibility champion program and have gotten their badges. But we also created a level 2 and a level 3. And the level 2 are the people that want to take on leadership roles. And so there's additional training, a lot of empathy work with volunteering and customer interviews and such, creating captions, audio description. We want people to understand what it's like and who our customers are. They have set aside time with their managers to do stuff. It's not an official part of their job, but they've become the accessible point of contact and leader within their group. And then we have level 3 champions where we're making that a full-time job. And so that does take time. But then again, you have people that are bringing themselves up to that level and they're very passionate about it. And they can take on expertise within their job description. Also, we were founding members of Teach Access. And Teach Access was a program where companies like Intuit were saying accessibility was critical to our jobs, to being a developer. And so we changed our job descriptions to include accessibility knowledge. And by building the demand, we were able to go back to the universities and saying, now we need you to start supplying us better educated students. And so we worked on the curriculum. In fact, one of our level 2 champions this year just worked with a bunch of people and rebuilt the tutorial within Teach Access for universities to incorporate in their curriculum. So we see it as a multi-level thing. It's like lets us expand the knowledge of accessibility within the universities, and then internally let's expand the knowledge for everybody, regardless of their role. And so that's where we're putting it. is kind of a broad spectrum.
And all of you have mentioned, yeah, job descriptions and just, you know, making sure that people who come into these roles are willing to learn, or maybe it's tied to performance goals, and just incorporating accessibility into everyone's job. And I would love to hear from all of you, if possible. It does seem like we're at a point where accessibility has become something that more people know about. I wrote a story about how accessibility jobs are increasing more so than they have in the past 2 years. And, you know, as you are incorporating these descriptors into your jobs and teaching people internally, I'm curious, does it feel like people are, you know, learning and coming into these roles and want to be like these accessibility specialists or designers, whatever the title might be? Or is it still sort of slow trickling, and maybe there needs to be more work with, like, universities, like Ted mentioned? And I see that Fred has his hand, so I will go to him first.
Yeah, I mean, Anne-Marie, we're definitely seeing a lot of interest. And so we're trying to truthfully take our UX traditional roles and our accessibility roles and kind of blend them into, singular roles, because we really do want our UX designers and, visual designers to see things from an accessibility perspective. And likewise, from an accessibility perspective, we also recognize that accessible, capabilities are usually usable capabilities. So we're trying to really kind of blend it, not create these sort of specialties. We really do want, someone to bring to bear where there's both a usable and accessible product, and not have to, necessarily use a bunch of specialists. So it's great to see that. To be honest, the conversations that we've been having traditionally with the UX professionals, people are very interested in learning more about accessibility. They want to produce an accessible experience. So I'm seeing a lot of great uptake, and it's really exciting and confidence building for me.
In November, your hand was raised next. Let's go to you.
Certainly, we've hit this flex point where the demand in the marketplace is like nothing I've ever seen before. The job postings are all over the place. I think there's no denying that. But beyond that, I think the interest in having these jobs is also higher than it's ever been. We have, like I said, I think 15 accessibility specialists right now. We plan on hiring, I know so many more this year. So please reach out if you're looking. I would love to talk to you. Subtle plug. But even beyond that, I am mentoring maybe 5 people right now who want to become an accessibility SME at some point in their career. And I don't think there's ever been a point where I've had this many people interested in this as a potential career path that were designers. I've always had people who are interested in this as a career path who were front-end developers or project managers or even product people. But designers have always been the hardest sell for me, because just the nature of design, and especially visual designers, because this is pretty and you're making my stuff ugly, and all of those like sort of outdated arguments. I've never had so many visual designers interested in wanting to become accessibility specialists. And to me, that is probably the most heartwarming thing about this moment in time that we're in right now.
And Ted, let's go to you next.
I'm going to take a slight detour on this. So we started a program a few years ago. It's TurboTax Live, and it's basically where a taxpayer can work directly with an accountant. The taxpayer can see the accountant on the screen, but the accountant can't see the person. And when they first developed it, they had this concept that the accountant had to be able to speak, because they were speaking to the customer and they had to be seen. So they had to have the technology and the oral communication skills to do this, not just be an accountant. But I from the very beginning, I said, no, this is too narrow, because we have a lot of people that are not on camera. We have a lot of positions that could do that don't require oral communication. So we redid the job descriptions. And by redoing the job descriptions to remove the fact that they had to have written and oral communication, but keep it more open, it has had a huge expansion of who we're hiring as TurboTax and QuickBooks experts. One of the problems with D&I is that the only number we have is in the United States, and it's a self-disclosed disability status. And a lot of times you have to go to a third program in order to make that status known. So our numbers are not accurate. We know they're not accurate. But what I can tell you is that the number of people that self-disclose that they have a disability within our expert platform is twice as high as the number of people that have self-disclosed in the general population of Intuit. And so what's happened is, by making our job descriptions more open, we've empowered people who are end of careers, they're retired, they have a disability, and now they've got a really good remote workplace. And our customers are benefiting, because they're the ones that are creating new programs for ASL. We have one accountant who she has her own practice that specializes in small business owners that have ADHD. We have accountants with dyslexia that are neurodivergent, and they are really transforming our products from within. And that was partly enabled by the fact that we opened our job descriptions.
And I just want to remind the audience, we have about 12 minutes left in this panel. We'll try to leave the last 10 for Q&A, depending on how many questions come in. So I'll do one last question to my panelists. The title of our panel is The Future of Accessibility. We sort of skirted around this topic a little bit. You know, there seems to be a lot of hiring happening, but I would love to hear from all of you sort of, you know, can we call this an influx point? Is this it? Are we finally at a point where accessibility has become something that companies want to address and incorporate into all their positions? And most importantly, what do you think has forced companies to address this? In some cases, finally, in others, maybe more prominently. And we'll start with Cybele first.
Yeah, I do really think we're at like an inflection point. I think, you know, the disability rights community, their activism led to the passing of the ADA. And the ADA, I think without that, we probably wouldn't be having as many of these conversations right now. I'm really amazed at the power of that law to sort of force conversations around inclusion, to the point that it's even referenced sometimes in not necessarily legal issues, but it kind of encourages companies to do the right thing. I think also, given all of the social unrest in the last few years, the Black Lives Matter movement, COVID, realizing that there are different ways of working and doing things, people are expecting more from corporations, from the places that they work, from corporations that they buy things from. And I think also people want to have some level of feeling good about what they do, not just necessarily, contributing to company profits. I also think there's a lot of disability activists on sites like Medium, on web best practices sites. Digital accessibility is, talked about there a lot, and so it's just sort of all around us, and it's enough so that any of us can speak up at our jobs to sort of champion it and hopefully find an audience. So I do think that's different than it's ever been before.
Not to call on anyone, but November, I remember from our previous conversation, you had thoughts on this because you've been in the space definitely longer than I have covering it. So if you don't mind, love to hear your thoughts. And then after that, we will go to Ted.
Yeah, I have been in working in the disability space for 13 years, but I've had a disability pretty much all of my life. You know, I've every couple of years we thought it was going to get better and there was going to be an inflection point. And so some part of me hopes that this is the inflection point and it's all magic after this, but I have to admit that I'm also like a little jaded, and I hope, while I hope that everything is better, like I also don't want to pretend like it's all magic. Just less than 6 months ago, the nonprofit that I am on the board of, the Starkloff Disability Institute, has a conference that is usually based on universal design in the physical space, but we had a couple of discussions that were based on universal design in the digital space, because there is obviously some overlap. And I held like a little panel discussion that had two of my favorite people in the world, and one is a Zoom text user and one is a screen reader user. And both of them, you know, for all of the work that I feel like I've done in my career over the last 12, 13 years, neither one of them feel like it's really gotten much better. And it's kind of disappointing to feel that way. And so while I hope that things really are going to get better for them, I hope that it ends up not being a small minority. Like, I hope that we actually get better, but we'll see.
And Ted, let's go to you.
Sure, I think I'm going back to the point you said, the influx. Is this an influx? Is this a turning point? And COVID and the shift to a remote has taken accessibility and inclusion from being a theoretical to being a reality, not for those with a disability, but for everybody else. There was some work done by Cisco maybe about 9-10 years ago to try to see if they could create the technology for people to be hired that they called it transportation disabled. It's basically people that couldn't get to the office. That could be people in wheelchairs or people that use paratrans and such. That proved not only could it be done, but also the people that were in that study were 2.5 times more efficient than the people that were doing the same job but from an office. So 9 years ago, they started proving that this could happen. Then all of a sudden it's happening. All of a sudden, everybody's working from home. We're worried about things like mental health. We're worried about distractions, ADHD, not being exhausted. We're worried about the digital divide. All of these topics were discussed within the disability community. But now it's being discussed by everyone. So now that everybody has experienced this, then we do have an influx. We have a situation where when you go to someone and say, I need to work home, I need to have a flexible work environment, I need to be able to have a quiet space at the office. There's no more of these like, no, you don't. It doesn't really exist. Yesterday, I did a presentation at CSUN about long COVID and brain fog. And what we're seeing is that there's an enormous amount of people that have been affected long-term with cognitive disabilities, chronic fatigue, chronic pain. So I think that's the influx. Everybody is now understanding what it's like. Well, at least in a short term.
And we have 5 minutes left, so I will start doing some more audience questions. Maybe we'll do this a little rapid fire, so just one person who, if they want to answer per question. But of course, if you feel passionate, we can do more panelists. One other question we got from an attendee is, how do you build up internal accessibility resources for your employees and team members? And what do you provide to them so they can learn more about accessibility? Anyone interested in taking that one?
I have a quick tip. If you end up writing an email twice to people telling them how they can do, then you should publish it. And that's what we've done. We've got an enormous amount of information we publish because I just got tired of rewriting emails.
Oh, Cybele, let's go to you. And then November.
Yeah, we signed up with DQ for the online training for everybody, and we did a smaller group that did a boot camp. So that group can kind of be the mini subject matter experts and evangelists. And then same thing, I was having a hard time trying to convey to people what are the things we need to do, where's the training, how do you log in? So just documented that on a Notion page in a very simple FAQ style, and just share that with anyone anytime they have a question. So I think, yeah, documenting is super important. It could be in any form, but somewhere central that people can find it. And then making that part of the onboarding as well.
And then November, let's go to you.
Yeah, sometimes I think our job as accessibility experts is to distill the world of resources down into something that is understandable. So, like, we do a lot of, we have a newsletter that goes out that's taking the world of 8 million articles and distilling it down to a small set of 5 every couple of weeks. And then putting those out on a SharePoint. We have an accessibility guild that meets once a month, and then we take all of the things that are out there that say, how do I make an accessible form? And we have a 40-minute presentation on how to make accessible forms. And then that deck is out there to reference with those instructions. Just distilling down the ocean for people, and then publishing that on a SharePoint or whatever you have available to publish that so that it's out there for perpetuity. I love what Ted said. If you say something twice in an email, go out there and publish it because somebody else will ask it again.
Yeah, I love that tip and what you just said as well about distilling the ocean. That's a fun way of thinking about it. And Ted, not Ted, Fred, did I see a hand? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, just really quick on this because I know we're getting down on time, but we basically put everything on our workforce portal because we're always trying to avoid having multiple sources of the truth. And while we promote a whole bunch, it all goes back to a single source that people kind of know after a while. Oh, if I'm looking for accessibility, it's always going to be found in that one place. So I would always encourage everyone to centralize where you can, because when you start, when you take your community and you make them do a safari trying to find stuff, they'll quickly lose interest trying to find it.
This is Ted. Can I just add real quick? Wherever you put your documentation, make sure it can be found. Don't lock it into PDFs and PowerPoints and in wikis and Figma files and sketch files. Make sure it can be found on your intranet.
I'm liking all the metaphors. We got the ocean, we got the safari. It's loving it. I want to make me on vacation. We have about a minute left, so I'd like to maybe end the panel on a more maybe optimistic note, and hear from all the panelists. I don't know, it sounds cheesy, but what does the future of accessibility mean to you? Or however you want to take that. Who would like to start with that? There we go.
Sorry, am I first?
Yes,
cool.
You are.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm optimistic, and maybe I'm still early days, but I really do feel like we're at an inflection point. I think everything that my fellow panelists talked about, COVID, with social justice issues, all of this has, I think, propelled it, at least advanced it. It's not there yet, right? I get it, right? We still have plenty of work to do. But I see some points that are exciting for me. I see that the roles are starting to consolidate between UX and accessibility. I see major technologies starting to incorporate accessibility features in it. And I was talking in our one session about how, it used to be when you had to do spell check, you had to hit a button. Now today it's in line. Well, that's how it's going to be soon, I hope, for accessibility. It'll all be in line.
We have hit time, but anyone do want to do a rapid fire? I saw your hand, Sibel. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be super quick. I think the future is that everyone says it's their job and that it's not just a couple people advocating. And I see it going in that direction. So I find that very exciting.
Agreed. It's November. Like the future is that we no longer have accessibility specialists because we are all accessible.
I'll just say one word, and that's intersectionality.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who attended this panel and watched us all speak. And thank you, of course, to the panelists, Sibel, Fred, November, and Ted. Really appreciate it and your time today. And hopefully everyone has a good rest of the conference or day, whatever you're doing the rest of today. And maybe we'll see you next year.